Betsy Oppenneer is one of the foremost authorities on bread baking at home. As a certified culinary professional of the International Association of Culinary Professionals, Betsy is a guest teacher at cooking schools and retail stores all over America. Betsy is creative consultant for the King Arthur Flour Bakers catalog and spokesperson for the King Arthur Flour Company. She is co-editor of The Baking Sheet, a newsletter for bakers, and author of the best-selling cookbook Betsy's Breads. Betsy's second video in this series, Perfect Bread, Fun with Creative Shapes, makes the most elegant designs fun and easy to create.
Hi, bread baking is fun, easy, and so satisfying. It smells so good, tastes even better. There are only 4 steps to conquer to making perfect bread. You want to activate your yeast, add the right amount of flour, you want to knead it properly, and don't burn it. If you can conquer these 4 steps, there's no stopping you. I'm going to make bread today start to finish by hand. It's extremely important, I feel, for everyone to learn how to make bread completely by feel. Different brands of flour will absorb differently. On a humid day, it will absorb differently than it would on a drier day. The age of your flour, all of these are factors involved in the amount of flour that you would add into a recipe. If you'll learn how to make bread by feel, then you'll have no problem at all. I'll be able to show you an easy way to be able to conquer that portion of it. I also realize that there are a lot of you out there who don't have the time or the energies to want to make bread totally by hand. Therefore, I have my own methods that I'd like to show you for converting your recipes to the food processor and to the heavy-duty mixer. Okay, why don't we get down to business and make bread? Even though I've told you I want you to learn how to make bread by feel, everybody ought to see at least one time how to properly measure flour. One way is just to take a dry measuring cup, which is the kind with no spout, scoop, sweep, and here you have 5 ounces of flour. However, the other method is to take a spoon and lightly stir the flour to put air in it and lighten it. Spoon this into your measuring cup. And when it gets full, then take your scraper and scrape the top off. The difference is that this, by using the spooning method, will only have 4 ounces of flour in it. Since I don't know what method the person who has developed the recipe that I would be following has used, I think it's going to be very difficult. So this is why I tell you when you're making yeast bread, you want to have the least amount of flour in here, and the way to do it is to go totally by feel. Okay, we have the ingredients all measured here. The first ingredient that we're going to put in is our liquid. We're using water. I'm making a basic white bread because I want you to learn to make your bread on a white bread. It's a perfect learning loaf. So I'm going to put this in. The temperature to activate your yeast properly should be between 105 to 115. If you need a crutch, an instant read thermometer is perfect because there's no guesswork. You just put it at 110 or 105 to 115 in that range and it's fine. However, you don't have to have an instant read thermometer. Basically, all you need for making bread is to have a bowl, a spoon, and a pan to cook it on. Okay, we've got our liquid in here. Anything higher than 115 degrees will probably kill your yeast or wound it severely. It's very similar to your body temperature, so if you don't have a thermometer, if it's warm, it's perfect. If it's hot, it's probably too hot. We're using dry yeast or bulk yeast, and for every package of yeast that your recipe calls for, you need a scant tablespoon of yeast. Okay, we have salt and sugar. Both enhance the flavors of other ingredients. There's such a minimal amount of sodium per slice of bread that I would not cut the salt unless you have to be totally salt-free. You only need about a teaspoon of salt for every package of yeast. It also controls the fermentation. Sugar also aids in the browning of your crusts. I'm putting oil in. You don't have to have oil in bread, but it's good to have it because it lubricates the gluten meshwork. It's like a door that will open and close, but you put a little oil on the hinge, it'll open and close much faster. When you've got oil in your bread will rise, but it rises springier when you've got oil in there. Okay, I want to add about 2/3 of the amount of the flour that our recipe calls for. Just a guess at it. I'm going to put 4 scoops in. I want enough flour that when I stir it, I have something that will give a little bit of resistance. It's not like stirring a puddle of water. All right, as you notice in the bowl, when we first start out, we've got this gooey, globby mess. The more I stir this vigorously, the stringier it's going to get. This is the gluten forming. What you have to do when you're making bread is your major ingredient is, of course, flour. You need a good high-protein flour, preferably with no bleaches, no bromates, no chemicals. When you add flour and liquid together, they will, and stir it or work it, or in one term I heard, punish it, which to me, I don't like punishing, but the more you work it, see, it's beginning to get much stringier than it was when I first put it in there. So you want to have a good hard wheat flour, because the hard wheat flour will form more gluten. After you've beat this vigorously for 2 or 3 minutes to get the gluten forming, you want to add flour a little bit at a time. I'll add flour, stir, whoops. As soon as that disappears, add a little bit more. I am using a Danish dough whisk, which is this funny contraption that I'm using here, and it does make stirring heavy dough much easier. It's got a very hardy handle or thick handle that lifts dough so that it combines things nicely. Can you see now how the dough is beginning to ball towards the center? This is the perfect time to turn it out on the work surface. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all the flour out, and then I can just pull from it. I have 7 cups of flour pre-measured by the spoon and scoop method, so that you can see exactly how much flour I'm going to put in here, because I'm going to make it by feel, and this way you will be able to see how much flour I actually put in here. Okay, I have a plastic dough scraper that cleans the bowl perfectly good. Wish I had bought stock in spatula companies. When I first started making bread, I left the handles of more spatulas than around the world as I learned to make bread. Okay, we've got this out. Now, what I want to do is we're going to cover this lightly with flour. I'm going to take my plastic scraper and just take all of these sticky edges, fold them around to the middle here, and continue going around until the dough begins to stand up or mound up. Now we're ready to knead. This is the fun part. I love getting my hands in here and turning this yucky mass into something that's beautiful, smooth, and fun. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to fold the dough the first time, rock, pull, rock, pull, rock. It's sticky, but just keep moving. Scrape, give it a quarter of a turn when it gets long. Anytime you have real sticky spots, put your hands in the flour, pat the dough. Okay, fold, rock, pull, rock, pull, rock. Catch it before it starts to stick a lot. Scrape it, more flour, put it back down again, and go again. You need to develop rhythm. The rhythm will make it a lot easier for you. And just keep going. You don't have to work fast, just steady. Fold, rock, so it gets long, quarter of a turn. Scrape it before it gets stuck. Okay, all of these pieces that get stuck on your hands, I love it. People in class throw these away because they're dry. They think they're not any good at all. These will soften as you put them back in the dough. And if you look at this, this is a lot of dough. Doubled in bulk, you're throwing away bites of bread. Put them back in there. They're great later. And you'll never know they were hard and dry. Okay, this begins now to pull together and knead. There are many ways of kneading, as there are many ways of making bread. There's no real right and wrong way. It's what will work best for you. I'm a one-handed kneader. I pull the dough toward me and rock it away, and I have a rhythm this way. If you don't master the method of using 2 hands, or the one-hand method that's mine, you can take this, slide all of your flour forward, and just rock the dough from side to side when it gets long. Quarter of a turn, rock it, quarter of a turn, and just continue on this way. What you need is a stretching of this dough. Stretch and fold, because this is what's going to develop the gluten, which is what's going to make your bread rise better and have a much nicer texture. I don't really use the rocking from side to side method as much because it will wear you out. I know I had a lot of people in my classes refer to this as bread aerobics. That way we can eat more bread. Okay, I'm going to knead with my one hand method so that we can move along a little faster. As I say, try all of the different methods. Bread baking is a very personal thing. It's going to be, what are you the most comfortable with? Not what the teacher is most comfortable with, because each one of us has our own little place where we're more comfortable there than we would be somewhere else. Okay, when you're making bread totally by feel, the first thing you want to do is to see if you're kneading it properly. I mentioned earlier there are the 4 steps to conquering bread baking. The kneading is one of the most important. It will make the difference as to whether you have more crumbs on your cutting board or if you have more crumbs in your slice. All right, the first thing we want to start looking for to see if we've kneaded it properly are blisters. You have to knead up the flour to be able to see it. Each time that I'm kneading, by the way, this does sticks to my hand, but I don't stop. If it gets too sticky, I just powder my hand and continue on. Don't add flour unless you really find it necessary. Let me clean this off before I start looking for blisters and put these bites back in. Okay, but I find it so exciting when it starts to come together at this point, because now it's becoming alive, it's smooth, it's beginning to really feel nice under my hands. I'm a fanatic when it comes to kneading. This is my favorite way, and I don't understand why everybody doesn't do it this way. However, later on in the video, we will show you how to use machines if you don't like getting your hands in here. Okay, let's look for blisters. I'm going to smooth this up. If you have trouble smoothing it up like I can when I'm kneading it, when you're first learning how, put a bit of flour down and just try stretching the edges in all the way around, and then flip it over so that you get a smoother edge. Now, what we're looking for are blisters. Here's a very large one here. I don't know if you can pick that up in the camera or not. Let me smooth it one more time and see if you can. This is still very, very sticky, by the way, which is the way it should be. You want it nice and slack. Okay. Dust off some of the flour here. We have big blisters all over. It's like you burned your hand and you get this little blister in your skin. Once you develop the blisters in your dough, that shows that you are kneading it properly. It takes a good 8 to 10 minutes to knead dough properly. I have many students who say, I can knead my dough in 4 minutes, but you can't. You can get the right amount of flour in 4 minutes, but you definitely don't knead it enough. Good 8 to 10 minutes to work your dough. Okay, the second thing you want to look for is how much flour do we want to put in here if we're making this totally by feel. Okay, we're going to round this up into a football shape or an oval. Lift it, plop it. It'll settle out much faster if you plop it than it does if you just lay it down. You can tell by watching the crown slightly that it's when you're ready. Make a triangle, shape your triangle, squeeze it, leave it for a few seconds, and watch it. As you notice, this is starting to wash out. The triangle is disappearing. This means we don't have enough flour. I wanted you to see that part so you could see when we did get to the right point what it's going to be like. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is, I've been standing here kneading this, talking to you. I want to show you what happens if you make bread like Grandma taught us, or like they did in Grandma's day. I have a girlfriend who says my grandma never made bread, but it's still a good way to explain it. All right. They say you to put your heels into it, knead down, push hard. If you do this, what happens is you end up needing to add much more flour. You do not want to push if you want to make nice light bread. What you want to do is master this rocking method. It's a constant stretch and fold, stretch and fold, stretch and fold. So don't push down with the heel of your hand, or you'll have to put much more flour than is necessary. Okay, we're going to lightly flour the board again, move it over, powder the sticky spots, and go again. Let me show you proper kneading one more time. You're going to take 2 hands, fold, rock, pull, rock, pull, rock. As it gets long, quarter of a turn. Pat the sticky spots, fold, rock, pull, rock. Notice that I'm pushing out, not down. That's the more important part. Then develop it into a rhythm, whatever it takes. Sing, talk, count. Just something to develop rhythm. All right, if you're one-handed, you're going to pull it towards you, rock it away. Pull, rock, rock. My left hand is just guiding it around. It's not really doing anything. But it's just pull and push. Or you can do the rock, and as it gets long, turn, rock, turn, and continue on that way. It's whatever you're the most comfortable with. Work it out yourself. Okay. Let me make another football for us and see how we're doing on the flour. Smooth it up so that it goes into its shape better. Make the football, lift, plop, powder your hands. Can you notice that the crown is staying up there a lot better this time? Okay, make your triangle, squeeze, let go. If you notice now, the triangle is staying. All of those lines stand up high. So we know now, even though we have not used it all, we've probably got about a half cup of flour left over. Making it by feel, that's fine. If we put that in, our dough would be much drier, stiffer, and not as light and airy. When you're working with whole wheat and whole grain, the lighter you make your dough or the slacker your dough, the better it's going to be because it doesn't get so hard and dry for you. All right, we've got beautiful blisters again. We knew this because I showed them to you earlier. We know also that when we plop it, powder your hands, let it settle for a minute, make your triangle, squeeze, hold it for a few seconds, let go, that stays. We've got plenty of flour. Okay, we're going to bring this in. We'll put a guesstimated tablespoon of oil. I'm using oil in my bowl because oil expands with your dough as the dough rises. Butter and shortening don't necessarily. Put the dough in, lift and spin until the dough spins freely. Flip it over. We'll cover this with a tight weave towel so that air doesn't get through. And put it aside and let it rise.